CyberHub bunker and studio. You're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hey everyone. Happy Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. You're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast Practitioner Brief. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can tune in daily and catch us live. Comment, ask questions. This is the 10-minute brief where we talk about some of the most trending stories and what they mean from a risk, impact, and mitigation perspective. So you can always let us know if you have any questions. Typically, people comment even after the show. So if you're watching this after, you can comment below. We get notice. I reply as quickly as humanly possible. So just make sure to do that. Make sure to follow us and subscribe to today's podcast. If you're listening on your favorite podcast listening platform, subscribe and share this podcast. That's one of the best ways you can help us is by sharing it. Today's show is supported by our friends over at KnowBe4 and Wistic. You can see their comments and links in the show notes. So check them out and follow them on LinkedIn as well. And now let's get right into, we've got 5 stories to talk about today, including a story with China that you see in front of you. We've got an Accellion update. We have a notification of a data breach. And we've got a few scams that are just what I consider to be scum of earth that we'll talk about towards the end of the show. But before we get started, we can't start a practitioner brief without our ceremonial cup of coffee. So just join me in grabbing whatever coffee you enjoy drinking. I'm a double espresso guy. So cheers. All right. One last thing. March 17th, folks. Mark that day. It's St. Paddy's Day. Wear your best Irish gear. We're having a webinar with my friends over at Wistic. You can find all the information on the CyberHub podcast, CISO Talk LinkedIn page. So go there, sign up. You won't want to miss it. A CISO conversation on the supply chain. Joining me will be Gray Meyer, who's the CISO over at Hollard Insurance Company, one of the largest insurance companies in Australia, the legendary Chris Roberts, and Nick Sorensen, who's the CEO over at Wistic. We're going to be having an unbelievable panel conversation. It's exclusive to you CyberHub podcast listeners, so you'll want to tune in to that as well. That's March 17th, 3 p.m. Eastern time. You've heard it here first, so you'll want to tune in to that. David Hurley's already excited. Nice. It is nice. It's going to be an awesome session. All right, let's get right into what's going on today. Risk impact mitigation. So Chinese hackers have cloned the Equation Group exploit years before the Shadow Broker leak, meaning they had access to it from at least 2014. This was tracked to CVE 2017 0005. The vulnerability was addressed by Microsoft in March of 17th after the Lockheed Martin computer IR team observed a possible attack against an American target and reported it to Microsoft. This has been attributed to APT 31, a Chinese hacking group, also tracked as Zirconium. The exploit of this vulnerability is, in fact, the clone of the Equation Group, code named EPME Checkpoint says. Exploitation tools that the Equation Group had been using for years were made public in early 2017 by a mysterious group calling themselves Shadow Brokers. At the time, this was believed to be the initial of the leak. However, according to Checkpoint, this leak started as early as 2014 when they were using this tool actively. There are several patches to this, but further analysis, and this I think is the greatest impact on the business. Further analysis has revealed that the exploits contain artifacts specific to the Equation Group tool, suggesting that EPME was the original exploit for CVE 2017-005. They were able to capture it and clone it in 2014 and started using it the same year and had a 3-year run with this. This is significant because this shows the early challenges of our industry. From a cybersecurity perspective, we're talking 2014 to 2017. Very easy for some of you to be cynical about this, but If you go back 7 years, cyber wasn't top of mind. Even today, we still complain of the fact that cyber wasn't top of mind, and that remains still to be a significant issue. All right, let's move on to our next story here, where Accellion FTA, the zero-day attacks now show ties to Clop ransomware Fin11 group. This according to threat post here. So the threat actors stole data and used the Clop's leak sites to demand money in an extortion scheme, though no ransomware was deployed. Multiple Accellion FTA customers, including the Jones Day law firm, which also represented President Trump post-election, Kroger, and Singtel, have all been attacked by the group, receiving extortion emails to publish stolen data on the Clop Leaks Onion website. According to an investigation by Accellion and FireEye Manian, around 100 companies have been victims of the attack. Analysts found with around 25 suffering significant data theft. No ransomware was used in these attacks. Notably here, folks, according to ThreatPost, the number of victims on the Clop Leaks shaming website has increased in February 2021, with organizations in the US, Singapore, Canada, and the Netherlands also outed out. So this idea of naming and shaming. 4 zero-day security holes were exploited in this attack, according to the investigation. CVE 2021-27101, 102, 103, and 104 have all been exploited. We get a comment here. Let's bring that right up. So JJ says, we are still very immature in regard to business presence. We have a long way to go. Yeah, absolutely, JJ. We still have a long way to go with things that have been going on here. So the Accellion shows just the depth and the challenge of defending your organization with the supply chain attack. Now, started with SolarWinds, it's Accellion. There's a bunch of others that are Centrion in France. The supply chain threats are real, and these things come in like waves, right? So we all remember, Equifax, that was a patching issue, and then we had a bunch of, patch breaches thereafter that came in waves. Here is the same thing. We're now seeing the supply chain wave, which now everyone's going to spend money and address, and then they're going to find something else to do. But at least we stop this attack surface for another. One thing about this, though, and I have it here in my notes, is if you look at what they're doing with the naming and shaming, one, I'm glad that ThreatPost doesn't put their Onion website on. But number two, it's very important not to shame these victims, because at the end of the day, that's where the challenge lies, is we need to support these companies that are victims of these criminals, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So VC giant Sequoia informs investors of a potential data breach thanks to one of their employees falling for a phishing attack. The only reason I wanted to mention this is because Sequoia is a large investment group. In Axios broke this story over on Saturday, but Sequoia has traditionally been very, very good when it comes to security. They've invested in a ton of companies, I believe, as well. Part of their portfolio includes Netscope, Salt Security, StackRock, Swig, Sky High Networks, SentinelOne, FireEye, and Palo Alto. So they're definitely not a stranger to security, although this just shows you the human element, which I always like to touch on if we can. LinkedIn user here. I don't know who this is, and I don't have time to pull it up like my normal life. So I think supply chain vulnerability is always there. It's kind of an open secret. It is. You're absolutely right. In a VC firm, yeah, absolutely. VC firms have money. Compromise one. We saw this last year where a man-in-the-middle attack between an Israeli startup and a Hong Kong-based VC led to the cyber criminals making over $1 million in that transaction, canceling an actual physical meeting that was planned between the parties. VC firms. All right, here's the thing. My next two stories are, screw you guys, I'm going home. All right, here we go. So the Texas Electric Company is warning of scammers threatening to cut power. So lo and behold, Austin Energy says that some of their customers have been receiving phone calls already threatening that if they don't make payment over the phone right now, they're going to have their electricity canceled after being out of electricity for the last week or so as Texas tries to recover from the winter storm that plagued it last week. The scammers are telling customers that they'll be disconnected within 30 to 60 minutes if immediate payment is not made. We are not conducting disconnects, but we haven't been, according to Austin Energy, they don't do disconnects. They don't call you, letting you know you're going to be disconnected. If you get a call, some of the stuff to do is hang up and never call a number left in a voicemail, text, or email. Instead, if you're worried, contact the utility company directly from their website. If you get a call out of the blue saying you have any past due bills, don't give any information or online and so forth. If you have family, friends, or colleagues in the Texas area that are likely to become victims or at least try to get a phone call like this, please share the story with them. These guys are what I like to consider the scum of what we have to deal with in cybersecurity. And finally, another scummy story is the TDoS attack that takes aim at emergency first responder services. So the FBI is warning of a telephony denial of service attack taking aim at emergency response numbers, effectively 911. The way they're doing these attacks is they're flooding the network with junk calls, making legitimate 911 calls unable to get through. So a few things to do in the event this happens in your area. One, conduct a local emergency. 911, your local police department also has a non-emergency number that's not tied into the 911 center. So just have that also handy in your phone. Number two, most big cities today have a 911 text line. Make sure you know that. And finally, have non-emergency numbers. Sign up for automated stuff as well. And if you're in cyber, go to your local 911 dispatch and see if there's any help you can volunteer or have the community volunteer to help them build resiliency from this attack. LinkedIn user here says there's a market for anything unfortunately ugly or other side of capitalism. I'm going to go with ugly. This has nothing to do with capitalism. Capitalism is selling you what is $2.80 gallon of gas for $4. Calling people and asking them for money and scamming them out of it when you're not attached to anything, that, my friend, is just ugly. That's it for our practitioner brief today, folks. We'll be back with a lot more tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe and follow us. Tomorrow I've got an awesome CISO talk coming with Ryan Glover. Also, CISO's Secrets, a brand new podcast I'm doing with my friends over at Checkpoint. You'll want to check that out as well. We just wrapped up our episode with Max Garcia, the CISO over at NCR Financial, and Renee Wright. That's beyond scummy. Absolutely, it's beyond scummy. That is not what capitalism is. That is just scum. So CISO Secrets, again, yes, make sure to tune into that. Until then, folks, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for being part of this awesome cybersecurity community and the CyberHub podcast family. Until tomorrow, 9 a.m., we'll be live again. And tonight, Other Side of Cyber with the one and the only JJ, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday. So like Australia, 12:30 p.m. for you folks. Grab your lunch, grab your sandwich, tune in The Other Side of Cyber tonight. That's it for me, folks. Signing off. Have a great rest of your day and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.